Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a fact check. We're going to talk about Thomas Bowers tonight. Thomas Bowers was a bank executive. He worked for Deutsche Bank, he worked for Citigroup, he worked for a couple other places. But what we're going to talk about is his suicide and what that has to do, if anything, with Jeffrey Epstein. So the original source for this was True Pundit and Thomas Paine over at True Pundit, aka Michael Moore. Now, supposedly, Thomas Paine, Michael Moore, used to work at Citibank. So I can't verify that. I've tried, I've looked, I cannot verify that. So I guess we'll have to put that as, I don't want to say it's a lie because I don't have the evidence. We'll just say inconclusive. And that's what I'll do throughout this whole entire segment here. If it's something that I couldn't source back, I'm going to say it's inconclusive. If it's something that I found evidence of, I'll say, hey, that's fact. But what we'll do is we'll read the True Pundit article and we will go through it and I will discuss what I have found in my own research into this. So let's hop into it, shall we? Before we do that, though, if you would like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com, BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. All right, so there's a lot of rumors flying around about Bowers, and he doesn't really have that large of a profile as far as a professional profile. So it's hard. It was really hard to pin down, start dates, end dates, etc., etc. But what I do have is a definitive date that he left working at Deutsche Bank. And I have that date from a source that actually works on Wall Street, and I have it from another source that supposedly has intimate knowledge of this case and the investigations, the internal investigations at Deutsche Bank. So the source that gives us the exact date that he left the company is rock solid. That's a source that is definitely 100% accurate. And the other source, well, I'm not really, like I said, it's a source that says they have intimate knowledge to, as far as the internal investigation at Deutsche Bank. So we'll jump into this True Pundit article, and this is the source of the actual rumor. This is the source material that everybody leads back to, saying that this is their source. So we're going to go right to the source, and we're going to read it, and we're going to see what he has to say. And like I said, I did my own research into this already. This isn't one of those articles that I haven't read. This isn't a Daily Drop article. This isn't a Morning Update article. This is an article I've read, and for the last week I've been looking into this. And like I said, there's a lot of stuff that's inconclusive here, folks. I'm not going to go on record and say that this isn't, this didn't happen or he has no ties with Epstein. But what I will say is there's a lot of really paper-thin, flimsy connections to Epstein. We really don't have that smoking gun, in my opinion. But with that said, he was in charge of private wealth management when he was working at Citigroup while Epstein was drawing loans from there. So while he was at Citi, it's quite possible that him and Epstein did have a relationship. But at Deutsche Bank, as you will see, as I'll talk about as we go through the article, I just don't see anything being there as far as Epstein and Bowers working together as far as loans at Deutsche Bank. All right, so let's check out this article and see what it has to say, shall we? All right, so like I said, the article is from the True Pundit, and I really don't, like I said, I don't use these sort of sources when we're doing the daily drops, etc., etc. But in this case, this is the original source for this I don't know, rumor, I guess you would call it, this alleged ties between Epstein and Bowers. So I'm going to go back to the exact source, like I said, as opposed to running what I would in the mainstream articles that I usually run. And I'm going to read this article, and I'm going to tell you what I have found. So here we go. Headline: Jeffrey Epstein's private banker at Deutsche and Citi found swinging from a rope. Executive suicide before FBI questioned him. Jeffrey Epstein's private wealth banker, who brokered and signed off on untold multiple millions of dollars in controversial Deutsche Bank and Citibank loans spanning 2 decades for the convicted pedophile, has died from a reported suicide. And already in the first paragraph, I have problems. I feel there are discrepancies, and we have to be honest. We we have to make sure that we're being completely honest when we cover this stuff, because we don't want disinformation to get out there, right? We don't want this case to be used as disinformation. We don't want this, unless we can seriously tie Bowers to him when he was at Deutsche Bank. Well, I don't think that there's much there. So we could definitely say that he probably gave loans to Epstein while he was at Citibank, right? We don't have a paper trail of that. Nobody's come forward with a paper trail of that saying, okay, these are the loans that were taken out. These are the ones that Bowers signed off on. So we don't have a paper trail for that. So I'm going to say once again, inconclusive. We do not know for sure about Citibank, but at Deutsche Bank, I think it's pretty fair to say that Epstein was not the man pulling the loans Bowers was not pulling the loans for Epstein in 2013. If the timeline is correct and Epstein moved his money over to Deutsche Bank in 2013, then I find it highly unlikely that Bowers was working with him at the time of Bowers' suicide or at the time of Epstein's arrest. The news of yet another mysterious Epstein-linked death comes shortly after the FBI was seeking to interview the bank executive about loans he approved for Epstein and the indicted child traffickers' labyrinth of U.S.-based and offshore companies. All right, well, I can't find evidence of that anywhere. I can't find evidence that Bowers was about to be interviewed by the FBI in regards to Epstein. What I can tell you is that Bowers was hip deep in providing Donald Trump loans through Deutsche Bank for years and years and years. And that is something that's going to definitely, that's getting looked at as we speak. But there is zero evidence that Bowers was, giving money to Epstein. There's no evidence saying that was occurring at Deutsche Bank besides this True Pundit article. I've searched high and low looking for the evidence, and like I say, folks, if I don't have that evidence, I can't believe something's the case. So as much as, people want this to fit their confirmation bias, I'm going with the fact that, well, not the fact, I shouldn't say the fact, because it's definitely not a fact. I don't have all the evidence, obviously, but I'm going off of the feeling that this article here is just not telling the truth. I think they're trying to pander to a certain group of people that want their confirmation bias fulfilled, and I talk about it on the left, and it happens on the right as well, and I think that's what we're seeing in this article, and as we go through it, I think you'll see more of that. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner confirmed Thomas Bowers died by an apparent suicide by hanging at his home before Thanksgiving. And like I said, I can't find any evidence of him and Epstein having a working relationship at Deutsche Bank. Everything you look at with Bowers points to his relationship with Donald Trump and Jared Kushner. And look, I'm not one way or the other, I'm not saying that there's any there either, because I haven't really dived into that situation either. But from researching this Bowers character and going through the things that I have went through, well, it's hard for me to say that this would be the reason why Bowers killed himself, the Epstein situation. If anything, if we're using, logic, it would definitely be more to do with the investigation into the loans to people like Donald Trump, in my opinion. And now I'm not saying Donald Trump had him killed, and I'm not saying that he was killed involved in the Epstein situation. In fact, I'm saying pretty much the opposite. I don't think that this Bauer situation really, it's connected by the flimsiest of threads. Bowers headed the private wealth banking division for Deutsche Bank and signed off on millions in loans to Epstein. I can't find any evidence of that. So I have found zero evidence that he personally signed off for millions of loans into Epstein. Deutsche Bank gave loans to Epstein for sure. But Thomas Bowers, left Deutsche Bank at the exact day he left. Let me show you right here. Okay, let me look at my email. Thomas Bowers was fired on January 15th of 2013. According to my source, he was a liar. He felt no remorse about using others. He had some ongoing affairs with his secretary, hearsay. And I guess he was, run out of the company after a while. And After that, he was off for 2 years. He didn't work anywhere for 2 years. So there was no way that he was providing those loans to Epstein in the time frame provided by this True Pundit article, not from the research I have done. All right. True Pundit founder Mike Thomas Payne Moore previously headed anti-money laundering for a major Citigroup division during the time frame Citi commenced large loans to Epstein. Now, I don't know anything about Mr. Payne, Mr. Moore. If he worked at Citi, I couldn't find any evidence of that, and my source had no idea one way or the other. So I'm going to go with inconclusive there. What I will say, though, is that they did commence large loans to Epstein. Citibank definitely was giving large loans to Epstein at the time that Bowers was there. That's without a doubt. That's indisputable as well. Now, like I said, I can't draw the line directly to Bowers and Epstein. I can't draw that line, folks. I'm not gonna, just say something to fit the confirmation bias or to push a narrative, because I don't believe that the evidence is there. And obviously I'm not going to stop researching this. This is my preliminary findings. I wanted to get them out to you, but this is something that is flimsy at best, folks, and I wouldn't hang my hat on something like this. The loans to Epstein were personal and commercial, Payne confirmed. The Citi loans, I can confirm, were for more than $25 million. Some were secured, some were not. All right, so I'm obviously trying to track down any clues and information about those loans, any evidence about those loans. There has to be a paper trail somewhere, but getting my hands on that paper trail is a whole other thing entirely. So I have a few things in the fire. I have a couple of sources that I've worked with on some other things that are close to Wall Street, and I have them kicking the tires a little bit, and I will be talking with one of them sources again next week sometime. So maybe I'll get some more information, but like I said, as of now, he definitely got loans from Citibank, but do we know that it was Bowers who was personally giving him them loans? We don't. We do know that Bowers did have a position of power, however, and I'm sure that he definitely knew that these loans were going out. There's no doubt about that. Did Citi bend its lending rules for Epstein? Payne said that appears quite likely. Well, if Payne was in charge of one of the anti-corruption divisions of the bank, shouldn't he know that? What do you mean, quite likely? Shouldn't you have that evidence? With Bowers and other Citi executives he later recruited to work for him at Deutsche, all working to secure the approvals regardless of compliance-related red flags. Well, I know for a fact that he definitely brought a lot of people over from Citi. One of his top guys was Charles Chip Packard, and he brought him over from Citi as well, I believe. They were both in the private banking division, and I guess there was a lot of people that came over to Deutsche Bank with Bowers from Citi that a lot of the employees had some issues with back then, according to my source. And sources said Citi loaned Epstein much more money, eclipsing $100 million, and also allowed Epstein to use the bank to send thousands of wire transfers from his accounts. Bowers, who turned up dead just days ago, brokered the loans for Epstein, sources said. I can't confirm these sources. Like I said, I have my sources that I have on close to Wall Street that I've reached out to and I've touched base with. They can't confirm any of this as well. They really don't know one way or the other, so we're going to have to label that inconclusive as well for now, folks. Bowers was the chief of Deutsche Bank's private wealth management division, that's a fact, and worked from the bank's Park Avenue offices in New York City. Fact. At Citi, Bowers served as the chief of the Citi Private Bank and previously ran Citigroup's global markets and wealth management business. That is correct. So what that is private wealth management. They cater to the richest of people. You have to have, be worth over like $20 million for these people to even talk with you. And that's what Bowers was, what he was doing at Citi. So one would imagine that he definitely came into contact with Epstein while at Citigroup, and that they probably did business together. Now, again, that's speculation on my part. I don't have the evidence to back that up. But when you start putting all your ducks in a row, you would think that the guy that runs the private wealth division is involved in giving loans to a guy like Epstein. Bowers was the chief of Deutsche Bank's private wealth management division and worked from the bank's Park Avenue offices in New York City. At Citi, Bowers served as the chief of the Citi Private Bank and previously ran Citigroup's global markets and wealth management business. And when Bowers left Citi for Deutsche Bank, Epstein followed. See, I can't prove that. That's inconclusive. Bowers, and it's there's a lot of things in this article. You know, when you start seeing all of these glaring discrepancies, it leads you to think that the author is being a bit loose with the truth. When Bowers left Citi for Deutsche Bank, Epstein followed, which isn't the case. When he left Citibank over financial issues, he went to J.P. Morgan, and then J.P. Morgan, after his trafficking issues, chopped him down, and supposedly it was 2013-ish that he moved over to Deutsche Bank. So if he moved over to Deutsche Bank in 2013, with Bowers being fired in January of 2013, how can we link them together at Deutsche Bank? Now at Citi, there's no doubt there's a definite link there. As far as how credible that link is and how strong that link is, I don't really have that information yet. My investigation is still ongoing in that regard. Meanwhile, Epstein stopped making payments on his millions in outstanding Citi loans, but that mattered little because Bowers approved new high-risk loans and credit lines from Deutsche Bank, sources said. Okay, well, he doesn't cite his sources, so it's up to us to look for them. So again, I'm going to have to go with inconclusive. And that relationship with Epstein continued until Bowers left Deutsche Bank in 2015. Okay, well, I know from my source that he did not leave there in 2015. He left in 2013, January of 2013, according to my sources. So this is a big fat Pinocchio, right? This doesn't jive up with my research, and I'm going to stick with what my source has to say since I trust my source. And it doesn't seem like there's anything that's actually sourced to real people here in this article. I think it's all coming from the writer, Thomas Paine. By that time, Epstein had chalked up untold millions in loans with the help of Bowers, who recruited many of his top private wealth bankers from Citi to Deutsche Bank. That's a fact. Like I said, Chip Packard was one of them. He went over from Citi to Deutsche Bank. And I can definitely confirm that. My sources definitely say that that's correct. The FBI, who was interested in interviewing Bowers, sources confirm, the FBI subpoenaed Deutsche Bank in May for all loans and accounts linked to Epstein, and there were many unanswered questions. Deutsche Bank closed out Epstein's accounts weeks after the bank was served federal subpoenas. Again, I really, this is murky stuff. I don't really... The only investigations I've really seen into Deutsche Bank right now have to do with Trump and their money in regards to the Trump campaign and the loans that they gave Trump before he was president. There's really nothing that says the FBI was planning to interview Bowers. I think that's a bunch of speculation, folks. I think it's speculation. Was Bowers dirty and crooked? Perhaps. When you're dealing with the loans he was dealing with, of course you're coming across some smarmy characters. And was he dirty? I don't know, but I'm certainly not willing to believe what's going on in this article. This article is just filled with all sorts of inaccuracies, in my opinion. Federal law enforcement officials said the FBI planned to interview all Wall Street wealth fund managers who worked for Epstein, Bowers included. How much money did Deutsche broker for Epstein? That number to this point has proven elusive. The FBI is not talking, but one executive divulged Epstein had secured more than $60 million from Deutsche Bank's U.S. and German arms. Likely that number is larger, but at this point the bank is keeping its exposure quiet. Okay, and like I said, I'm going to give that a Pinocchio as well. We don't know the number. A bank source said 60 million. What source is that? A bank teller? We don't know. It's inconclusive. We know that he got loans from Deutsche Bank. We know that they were after 2013, though. We know, or in 2013 at some point. So unless it was the first 10 days in January before Bowers was canned, then we can't link Bowers to Epstein at Deutsche Bank. Just like Bowers had brokered for Epstein at Citi, Deutsche also set the convicted pedophile up with over a dozen bank accounts that Epstein employed to receive and send wires and funds. Okay, again, see, if he left in January of 2013, how is it Bowers who was in charge of this? I think that this Thomas Paine got a name here, and he went a little wild with it. And in this article is pure speculation, and it's no wonder that people question the accuracy of the True Pundit and what their goals are. Because why would you post this as if it was fact when there's so much here that's inconclusive and that almost downright BS, some of it? One banking executive said Bowers had visited Epstein on his private island at least once. Bowers had also visited Epstein in New York and attended social events at his mansion. Inconclusive. I cannot find any evidence of that. Zero evidence of that can be found, and if anyone has that evidence out there, I'd love to see it. I would love to see the evidence that pointed Mr. Moore into this direction, where he got this idea that this was occurring. But I don't know. He doesn't provide his sources here. He just says sources. Federal law enforcement sources did not comment about these new revelations. However, city executives who worked with Bowers said the bank executive maintained an active nightlife and enjoyed the party circuit. I've heard the same thing, in fact. I don't really think it's pertinent to the case, really, but I know I heard the same thing, that he enjoyed going out. He was sort of a playboy. Him and a lot of those bankers were the same way, to be honest with you, according to my source. Epstein made Bowers and his financial institutions hundreds of millions of dollars, one executive said. It really didn't even matter that Epstein stiffed Citi for $30 million in defaults because he brought so much new money, new blood in. Citi made far more than they lost. All right, well, we know that he did stiff Citibank. That's a fact. But what he's doing here, in my opinion, in this article, he's introducing enough fact with a bunch of non-facts. I don't want to say outright lies, but a bit of being loose with the truth, enough to make it seem credible, and enough to make it seem like, oh man, there's a lot of there. When in reality, there's really no there. There's, you can say whatever you want, right? But we haven't seen any evidence of Bowers being on this island. We haven't seen him in the logbook. We haven't seen him. Nobody talked about, oh my God, this is a guy that just got killed. Holy shit, he was on that island. We haven't seen none of that. So all we have to go on so far is this True Pundit article. And it's not doing it for me, folks. It's not moving the dial for me. It's not making me say to myself, oh boy, hold on. There's a lot of there. Seems like a pattern. The American Banker reports Epstein brought lucrative clients into J.P. Morgan's private banking unit and was close to former head Jess Staley, who visited Epstein's private island as recently as 2015. Leon Black, Apollo Global Management's billionaire chairman, met with the financier from time to time at the company's New York office and used Epstein for tax and charity advice. All right, so again, now we see a little bit of truth. The J.P. Morgan private banking unit. We know that after Citigroup, he moved over to J.P. Morgan, not Deutsche Bank. He didn't move over to Deutsche Bank until 2013. So what he's doing here is he's putting in enough truth for people that have an idea of what's going on to say, oh, there's some there. All right, here's the breadcrumbs. Here's the trail. And I don't like that sort of reporting. You know how I feel about it. I feel it's dishonest. Come with the truth, bring the smoke, or don't, right? Don't do it. Don't be part of the problem. Police reportedly found Bowers hanging from a rope in his California home. He was 55. Previous press releases detailing Bowers' roles with the private wealth arm of Deutsche detailed the division and its targeted clientele. Deutsche Bank Private Wealth Management has been serving the interests of wealthy individuals, families, and select institutions for more than a century. With offices across the U.S., Deutsche Bank's Private Wealth Management business division provides a variety of customized solutions to private clients worldwide, including traditional and alternative investments, risk management strategies, lending, trust and estate services, wealth transfer planning, family offer services, custody and family and charity advisory. Private wealth management includes the U.S. Private Bank and Deutsche Bank Alex. Alex Brown, the Private Client Services Division of Deutsche Bank Securities Incorporated, the investment banking and securities arm of Deutsche Bank AG in the United States, and a member of NYSE, FINRA, and SIPC. This story is developing. No, it's not. Your story's dead in the water, buddy. All right, I spent a week going through it. You got a little bit of there. The Citibank stuff is correct. Some of the other stuff is correct, but your ties to Epstein, your direct ties to Epstein, are flimsy at best. So as of right now, folks, we're going to go with this story is inconclusive at best, and I'm leaning towards not being true. Now, does that mean that evidence can't sway me the other way? And if the evidence is provided, I won't say, all right, well, this dude obviously had something to do with Epstein. There's the obvious ties here. We see the paper trail, and we all know follow the money, right? Wherever the money goes, that's where these rich people dance. So if you follow the money, you usually come to your destination. Well, we don't have anyone dropping that information for us, right? We don't have that paper trail. So in my opinion, this is inconclusive at best, but I'm leaning towards false. Bowers did not kill himself because of the Epstein investigation. In fact, if I had to go on record, I would say that he more than likely killed himself. If he killed himself due to anything like this, then it would be with what's going on with Donald Trump. Because as much as I've defended Trump when it came to the whole entire hoax with Russia, if you are going to examine a businessman from New York's financials who was in construction, you are guaranteed 100% to find some smarmy shit. And if the Democrats would have went that route from the very beginning, and they went after him for being a criminal, as far as, a business criminal, well, that would have had something that most Americans would have been like, all right, well, we could see that. But no, they didn't do that, right? So if anything, in my opinion, Bowers killed himself because the whole entire Deutsche Bank investigation. And I don't think it has to just do with one thing or the other, or, I think that if it is one situation, then I think it's the deep look that they're doing into the Trump finances, considering Bowers' very close ties to Donald Trump and Donald Trump's personal banker, right? So there's a lot of there. Now, does that mean I think Donald Trump had this guy killed? No. I think that this guy was probably involved in some shady shit, and who knows what secrets he had, but I think that he knew that he had a chance of being prosecuted for whatever sort of shady loans he was putting out since his days at Citi. And instead of going through that, he had lost his wife in 2017. He was probably at the end of his rope. He got let go of his last job, and he finally probably said, what the hell with this? I can't take it anymore. That's it. I'm pushing my chips to the table, and I'm calling it a day, and I've had enough. And I think that at the end of the day, folks, I think that's what this is going to come down to. Just another one of these bankers who financially shit the bed, who was involved in some illegal stuff, some bad loans, and it was all catching up to him. And bam, here we are. He decided to hang himself. So, in my opinion, so far, according to my research, Mr. Bowers was involved with a lot of these loans at Citigroup that went to Jeffrey Epstein. There's no doubt about it. Now, was he directly involved in them? Like I said, I do not know. We don't have that paperwork. All we have to go by is Thomas Paine, Michael Moore's assertions. And while he might be a great blogger and he might offer some great articles and what have you, his word is not enough in a story like this for me to run with it and say that this is fact. I'm not here to fill anyone's confirmation bias, folks. I'm not here to, run my own narratives. That's not what I'm doing on this show. I very clearly state when things are my opinion, and in my opinion, the evidence does not add up in the Bowers situation. I do not believe he killed himself in connection to Jeffrey Epstein at this time. If evidence is provided to me and leads me the other direction, you folks will definitely be the first to know. All right, so this concludes our fact check portion of the podcast for the day, and this concludes our little look into Mr. Thomas Bowers and my opinion on whether it was a suicide connected to Jeffrey Epstein or not. All right, folks, I hope everybody's had a great day. I'm sorry that I was out of communication for the last day and a half or so. I was on a pretty sick camping trip at Valley of Fire State Park doing some exploring and some nighttime photography. But I am back now. I will not be out of phone range or service for a while, and we will continue to drive this story home. And it's important that we bring things up like this when they come up, right? These sort of rumors. I want to make sure that we give a look into them. I want to make sure that we don't just, I'm not going to discount anything out of hand. I'm not going to say, nah, I'm disregarding this because it just sounds too crazy. Because at this point, what is too crazy for this story? So, don't get it. I'm going to take a look at all of this stuff, but I'm not going to rush to look at it. I'm not just going to rush to cover these articles when they come out. I'm going to take my time and I'm going to research them myself. And I'm going to come to the conclusions that I believe are the correct conclusions and the conclusions that make the case or don't make the case. I'm not going to fit something in just to prove my point or just to seem like it's this even more wide-ranging conspiracy. Because we don't need all of that at this point. We don't need to sensationalize the Jeffrey Epstein story. It's crazy on its own. So again, like I said, this Thomas Bowers stuff was certainly worth looking into. I'm glad you guys all sent me the emails about it. And as of now, this is where I stand on the Thomas Bauer issue. I'm not saying you all have to believe that or stand on the same side of the road with me on this issue. We all have varying opinions on things like this, but I don't think the evidence is enough for me personally to say that I believe this. All right, everybody, remember, 2020 is the year we are turning predators into the prey. I'll be back later on tonight with the Daily Drop. Talk to you guys later. If you want to get in contact with me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, you can find the GoFundMe link in the description box.